Hey everybody, Channing Apodaca here with another Into the Chicane Quick Pit. This time the post-preseason testing, post-Bahrain Grand Prix, first race of the season edition. A lot to talk about. Let's get right into it. In preseason testing, 8-time world champion and last year's third-place finisher Mercedes seemed a little bit off the pace. It was assumed that Ferrari would slot easily into second, and to nobody's surprise, Red Bull absolutely dominated, taking home the fastest lap in 2 of the 3 days of preseason testing. The other of the 3 fastest laps went to Guan Yu Zhou of Alfa Romeo, but all eyes were on 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso and his new team, Aston Martin, who despite rumors of an upgraded package, most people assumed would battle for the top of the midfield at best. But hint hint, they look better than that and would go on to steal the show for the rest of the weekend. The team announced that despite some struggles, the injured Lance Stroll will take part in the Grand Prix weekend, sidelining the hopes and dreams of former F2 champion and current Aston Martin reserve driver Felipe Drugovich. Meanwhile, their teammate Fernando Alonso set the F1 world on fire, besting the 2 Red Bulls in 2 out of the 3 practice sessions leading into Saturday's qualifying. This qualifying session was one for the record books as all 20 cars crossed the line in Q1 within only 1.17 seconds of each other. To not much surprise, newcomer Oscar Piastri of McLaren, who we saw struggling all weekend long, finished P18. Surprisingly, new Alpine driver Pierre Gasly put it in the very back of the pack, but the American kid, Logan Sargent, in the Williams, nearly put it into Q2, putting up the exact same time as phenom driver Lando Norris in his shitbox McLaren. Tie goes to the runner, Lando crossed the line first. Jumping ahead to Q3, we had the nice surprise of Nico Hülkenberg and his Haas finishing P10, and the other Alpine driver, Esteban Ocon, finishing P9, where his weekend literally began to crumble. Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin's roller coaster weekend came down a little bit as he finished in a respectable but surprisingly disappointing P5. Meanwhile, the 2 Red Bulls began a rumor mill of sandbagging as the duo topped the charts with P1 and P2, gaining nearly 2 seconds apiece from Q1 all the way to Q3, which had the rest of the paddock saying, uh-oh. In the race on Sunday, we saw an absolutely abysmal performance from the entire McLaren team as newcomer Oscar Piastri DNF after only 13 laps, and number 1 driving superstar, I still love you, Lando Norris finishing dead last after completing 5 stops in the pit lane, basically turning his entire race into a glorified practice session. Sad. Everyone's favorite Nico Hülkenberg lost 4 places on the first lap and 5 overall, finishing P15. The 2 Williams cars had a great showing, rookie Logan Sargent putting it in a very respectable P12, and Alex Albon, new team lead, putting it in the points, finishing P10. Last place qualifier Pierre Gasly in the Alpine had a driver of the day worthy performance, climbing 11 places and finishing P9, saving the team from what would be an absolute disaster of a weekend. Merci Pierre. The back of the pack was depressing, the middle of the pack was exciting, but as always, the good shit was in the front. Charles Leclerc got off to a great start, overtaking Sergio Perez and sliding into P2, but DNF'd after 39 laps due to a power unit failure. This started off the Monegasque season on a sad note. Max Verstappen was ahead by 5 seconds in the first lap, gaining nearly 1 second a lap in the early going of the race. He would go on to win it, beating his teammate Sergio Perez by almost 12 seconds, who would beat the rest of the field by nearly 40 seconds. Needless to say, it looks like Red Bull's running away with this one early on. But revisiting the star of the show, Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin, who everyone at best figured would be top of the midfield, passes George Russell, passes Lewis Hamilton, passes Carlos Sainz, and finishes on the podium P3 for the first time in almost 500 days. So there you have it, the Bahrain Grand Prix, round 1 of the 2023 Formula 1 World Championship. We learned some things. McLaren might be the new Williams. Lewis's 8th is probably going to have to wait. Charles's 1st is probably not going to happen. And Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, and the Aston Martin team might have leapfrogged the rest of the grid by 5 places and jumped ahead to a solid P2 position. Meanwhile, Red Bull looks poised to potentially do the impossible and go 23-0 and shut out the rest of the season. Who knows? Let me know what you think. I don't care. This has been your Into the Chicane Quick Pit. Peace.